The crash of metal against concrete jolted me awake at 2 a.m. My heart pounded as I stumbled out of bed, grabbing my phone. The noise came from the garage. I crept downstairs, the cold floor biting my bare feet, and peered through the window. There she was, Karen, the HOA president, standing in my garage, flashlight in hand, rifling through my paint cans. Her face, illuminated by the beam, twisted in fury as she muttered about unauthorized colors. I froze. This wasn't just nosy neighbor nonsense. This was a break-in. Karen had been a thorn in our neighborhood's side for years, her clipboard a weapon of petty tyranny. She'd fine people for untrimmed hedges, lecture kids about chalk drawings, and once tried to ban my dog's bark. But this? Breaking into my garage over paint smells she'd complained about for weeks? It was unhinged. I'd been repainting my fence-approved beige, mind you, after getting her written okay. Yet here she was trespassing, her voice rising in a shrill rant about toxic fumes ruining the community. I dialed 911, whispering my address, my hands shaking as her flashlight swung toward the door. The police arrived silently, their lights off to avoid spooking her. Karen didn't notice, too busy stacking my paint cans like evidence for a trial. I opened the door, my voice steady despite my racing pulse. Karen, what are you doing in my garage? She spun around, eyes wide, caught. You're poisoning the air, she screeched, pointing at a half-empty can. This is a health hazard. The officers stepped in, their expressions a mix of disbelief and exhaustion. They dealt with her before her complaints about suspicious mailboxes had become local legend. But this was new. Burglary. Destruction of property. She'd smashed a can open, splattering beige across my workbench. As the officers questioned her, a crowd gathered, neighbors in pajamas, drawn by the commotion. Among them was Mrs. Nguyen, the quiet widow who lived next door. She'd always kept to herself, but tonight, her voice cut through the chaos. I saw her climb your fence, she said, holding up her phone. A video played. Karen in her signature floral cardigan, scaling my chain link with surprising agility, a crowbar in hand. The crowd gasped. Karen's face drained of color. She stammered, claiming she was protecting the neighborhood. But the video was damning. The officers cuffed her, her protests fading as they led her to the cruiser. The confrontation wasn't over. At the HOA meeting the next week, Karen's allies, her clique of rule-obsessed cronies, tried to spin the narrative. They called me the troublemaker, accusing me of provoking her with my paint. I stood up, my voice shaking but firm, and played Mrs. Nguyen's video on the projector. The room went silent. Karen's husband, a meek man who'd always trailed her like a shadow, stood unexpectedly. She's gone too far, he said, his voice breaking. She's been sneaking into yards for months, checking violations. I couldn't stop her. The betrayal hung heavy. Karen's empire of control crumbled as neighbors turned on her, their whispers of bully and criminal echoing. Karen's downfall was swift. The police charged her with burglary and vandalism. The HOA board, humiliated, voted her out unanimously. Her fines, her rules, her reignite all collapsed. She moved away a month later, her house sold quietly, her name a cautionary tale. The neighborhood felt lighter, like a storm had passed. We started a community garden, painted fences in bright colors, and let kids draw chalk murals. Mrs. Nguyen, once a recluse, now led the charge, her quiet strength inspiring us all. Looking back, I realized Karen's obsession wasn't just about paint or rules, it was about power. She thrived on control, but her need to dominate blinded her to reason. Breaking into my garage was her breaking point. A desperate act that exposed her for what she was. We reclaimed our neighborhood, not with anger but with unity. It wasn't just about one woman's fall. It was about standing up to petty tyrants everywhere. We learned that courage, mine, Mrs. Nguyen's, even her husband's, could rewrite the story. What do you think, was Karen a villain or just misguided? Share your thoughts on right and wrong in this tale.